Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome Dr. Rizwan. How are you, Dr. Rizwan?
I'm good, Zishan. How's it going?
It's good, it's good. Thank you very much, first of all, for attending this session. And I'm recording this session so that we would be able to provide few of the people who did ask, they're not able to attend due to time differences. And
Sure, sure.
because it is first ever session about Australia, so a lot of people have no idea what are the different
Yeah,
parts.
yeah,
So, very welcome. So, just a bit of introduction about you, then would start. So, I
yeah.
know Dr. Rizwan is an emergency medicine consultant. Personally, I met him in Lahore, and I was quite lucky to meet. And I'm sorry I was late at that time, but
No, no, that's okay.
I got a bit of idea about the Australian health system, and you shared few details about people who started working from Pakistan and Australia.
Mm,
So today I want you to take over the session and talk about things. So if anyone who would have question, they would type in the chat box at the end. I
yeah,
have questions with me as well. So
yep,
basically, I would like to start the session from the basic theme about how anyone who's in final year medical school, how they would start and how, what are the different pathways they can do.
yep,
Yes, Dr. Rizwan.
yeah. Thank you, Zishan. First of all, it's a pleasure rejoining with you, and it's always good to see you. You're smiling and happy and uplifting and hopeful, full of hope face. Uh, and yeah, it was a meeting which was very brief in Lahore, and I believe it definitely required a follow-up meeting in a more detailed way. And I think this meeting would, in essence, address some of the questions that you had in mind in a more formal and more organized way. So, about the pathway for a junior doctor, because I think that's the bulk of the people back home in Pakistan right now who are more confused than ever before. And a little bit of background about this confusion is uh, that, look, these confusions do come from time to time. Back in my day, when I was at Crossroad back in 2001, when I finished my medical degree, finished my house job in 2002, we were faced with the same or similar situation, not same, but similar situation when there were 9/11. And we were thinking about taking USMLE, and then some of the people who had actually taken the USMLE could get the visa. Some people who got the visa couldn't get the residencies. So it was a huge disappointment, a lot of confusion surrounding what to do. I got confused even before uh, planning to sit USMLE, even though I was planning to do the USMLE, but I changed my mind and decided about the PLAB, only to realize that when I came to the UK, that the pathway is actually quite saturated. The wait times had now boiled over to over a little over 24, little over a year to 18 months, 12 months, 18 months. And fast forward, 25 years later, the situation seems to be repeating itself. Only this time, I think it looks a little bit more serious and formalized. Um, as you know, with the recent inception of this prioritization bill, which has now been formalized, there's a lot of confusion around who will get into the training, which training posts, which specialties. You probably know this better than me, but it looks like that the people who are, back in Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, who have got their plans eyes set on PLAB, are not really questioning whether it's worthy to go into the UK with this prioritization. Would they ever get into the training? Because those posts will be fiercely competitive amongst the IMGs, and that's what opens up this discussion whether there are some new market. And I like to uh, I remember very distinctly that one of my friends, his name was Hamad Raza. He was actually from Lahore. He was one of my best friend in the medical college. He said, everybody thinks about the PLAB and everybody thinks about the USMLE. Why don't people talk about New Zealand and why don't people talk about Australia? And I said, oh, nobody thinks about that. Hamad, what are you talking about? Let's stick to where everybody knows most stuff, where the resources, reading materials are. and I just completely, disregarded his advancements toward new markets,
Yeah,
only to
exactly.
realize that 25 is exactly, yeah,
Exactly. So I
that I'll
just
be
want to
here.
cut off a little bit about that. I used to think the same way that doctors shouldn't think any other option apart from the UK. And I
Mm.
was persistently telling doctors just do the PLAB, you will get training anyway. Now myself, I'm doing education business in PLAB, but still I tell doctors go for AMC even after the PLAB too. So the situation is very difficult at the moment. And I 100% agree with you. Now, the people should think about AMC, should think about New Zealand, should think about Australia and Canada. So, this is something the people need to start with. So, someone who's the first question I would like to ask someone who is just in the medical school, what should they do? And what is the safest pathway for them? Or, yeah.
Yeah. So, the people who are in the final year of med school or about to finish the med school and need to uh, about to take their house job, and they have decided or set their eyes on AMC, they need to give at least 4 months for the preparation time for the Australian Medical Council MCQ exam. Now, this is the exam which is purely based on final year subjects of medicine, surgery, obs and gynae, mental health, and pediatrics. So it's not a difficult exam to crack. In many ways, it's quite similar to PLAB Part 1. So people who have been shifting from PLAB towards AMC, MCQ, they wouldn't feel that they need to do a whole lot of new learning. Yes, there are few nuances when it comes to guidelines and protocols, but that's not a huge difference. So set yourself some time, organize that time into a study routine, and then start preparing for AMC. There's a bit of a confusion around the dates. We've seen some transition that in Pakistan there was AMC1 centers and then they got taken away for whatever reason it was. So I think the people now are faced with this one unique challenge that AMC1 is a huge undertaking purely because of the fact that locally in Pakistan there is no jurisdiction where you can take AMC again.
Mhm.
So they are either have to go to Thailand, they have to go to Turkey, and it adds on another 1 lakh rupees to 2 lakh rupees on top of what the AMC is. Or they may, if they've got relatives in Australia, they may have to come to Australia. But then again, the visas might be a little bit more challenged. So let's talk about in a bit more broader way in terms of preparation. The standard pathway for the young doctors, which incorporates AMC1, AMC2, or WBA, needs to be done over the period of 3 years. Now, you may feel that these 3 years is a very long time and you need to do that all together before you even step foot in Australia. That's not true. AMC1 can be taken at any time after the completion of your medical qualification. Once you've done your medical qualification, you've got your degree in hand, you go and submit this degree for Mind Health verification, which has previously been known as EPIC verification of your credentials. So if your medical school is recognized, that shouldn't be a problem. Once you've got that credit, your medical degree recognized, you need to also create a separate portfolio called AMC portfolio. And what do you do is that you get the Mind Health verification double verified at AMC level as well. So basically, Mind Health is an international recognition body which shares the data with AMC, and AMC rely on Mind Health to to provide them with the legitimate data. So once you've got the portfolio built on AMC as well as Mind Health, you're good to go to take AMC MCQ. As I was saying, that the first part is the stepping stone. It's a very important part, and you need to dedicate at least 4 to 5 months of study time. And if you're fresh, it adds a little bit of advantage because you're fresh in final year med school subjects, and it should be easy to pass from that point of view. Now there are various courses in the market, and we also run a course. You can do this exam by yourself if you're organized. You don't have to do a course. However, if you feel that you need a community, if you need to carry yourself forward in a more organized way, you don't want to be bothered about what to learn, where to learn from, then courses are the best way forward.
Right. So I have one
Now,
more question regarding AMC.
yeah,
So basically, I have a lot of questions. That's why you got
yeah,
only 1 hour. So AMC one, a lot of candidates are afraid that it is difficult. You mentioned it's a 4 months preparation, and AMC itself announced that they are going to make the exam more difficult. Can you give some tricks about that for someone who is new? And what are the main resources, specifically the guidelines? Like in UK, we have some
yeah,
guidelines. What would you recommend in terms of that? Any motivation for doctors?
yeah. So let's talk about the new AMC algorithm which has come into effect. There are lots of people who are taking AMC from different parts of the world. Obviously, they have to maintain a certain standard of exam. That standard has got nothing to do with the passing rate, but that standard has got to do with the how the different questions are numbered and how different questions are judged. For example, if they've it's a computer adaptive test, just like any other computer adaptive test for that matter. So the questions which are easier, the questions which are difficult, and they'll be marked accordingly. So the added layering of this algorithm from this year onwards is just to create a degree of competitiveness and raise the threshold. So I don't want to alarm anyone that it will drop the passing rate by a huge margin or it will make the exam impossible to pass. It's not like that. It's just, yes, there will be some balance and check as a part of the standardization process towards the better quality of an exam, because there are lots of people taking this exam and they don't want to make sure that this exam goes below the belt in terms of its maintenance. The other thing is there are certain questions which are available online. They're based on recalls and they're based on, so they are also trying to infuse newer topics and newer questions in a view of standardizing a certain level of difficulty, perceived difficulty. So that will also layer up, and it's a bit of hearsay. We don't know how the final exam product would look like, but there will be a little reliance on people who are based entirely their study on recalls, because there will be a fresh set of questions coming in.
Exactly.
So I think from that point of view, fresh set of questions, less reliance on previous recalls, and making the pass mark based on the easy versus difficult question, it's going to get competitive. And when it comes to foreign exams, be it USMLE or PLAB, foreign medical graduates are used to it. They always prepare themselves a bit over the top, which brings me to my next question: that where do you prepare the AMC MCQ from? The main method of preparation of AMC MCQ is, first of all, let's talk about the core textbooks. So the core textbook, which are also now known as reference book, are Murta, John Murta,
Mhm.
which has got all the allocated chapters in terms of which we talked about: medicine, surgery, pediatrics, mental health, obs and gynae, and epidemiology chapters as well. So these are the reference textbook. If somebody's got time, they can do also read cover to cover. I never recommend textbook to be read from cover to cover, but yes, if somebody's feeling a bit more adventurous, they've got more time on their hand, then they can read John Murta cover to cover. The next resource is, there's an MCQ book published by AMC, which gives you a basic sense of idea what type of questions, how long the stems are, what are the options looking like. And this is published by AMC, which is always a good way of, preparing yourself. What kind of questions? It is available in PDF format. It's circulated in various telegrams and WhatsApp and Facebook groups. So you don't have to buy it. It's just to have a better understanding of how the official questions would look like. The third thing which AMC has done is they've actually published from now onwards a computer adaptive test on their own website. And this has come after a lot of uh, analysis, that they need to have a very authentic presentation of what this exam is all about. So if anybody was to rely on three most authentic resources, that would be John Murta,
Okay.
that would be the AMC MCQ CAT assessment book of MCQs, which is
Mhm.
widely available. And number three, AMC MCQ website itself,
Oh,
okay, which has got test papers and the recent test paper in a way where the exams is conducted. Now, then I call there is a secondary reference tools. I like Oxford Handbook of Clinical Medicine.
mhm.
That's what I use for my PLAB, and that's what I use for my AMC as well.
Okay.
because lots of the core concepts are still valid and applicable in terms of course subjects which we talked about. Um, there are certain things in secondary reading resources which then needs to be learned from Australian sources, and these includes Royal Children's Hospital Melbourne guidelines. This is, if anybody is not aware of them, then just type rch.org.au, which will give you guideline on every pediatric illness, from neurology to upper respiratory to lower respiratory tract to GI illnesses. Everything is in there. Then there are RANSCOG, or Royal Australian New Zealand College of Obstetrics and Gynae guidelines. So they're all women's health guidelines there. And there's CAP resources and ETG resources available, which are widely available as well. So these are what I call secondary reference sources.
Perfect. So I have a question again. So I understand you practiced in UK, then after that you done AMC. So the question, most of the time, my PLAB doctors who are struggling to get the job, when I tell them to do AMC, they just panicked. So you mentioned 5 to 6 months. So whenever they go through these online resources, they say 5 to 6 months, and still the passing rate is very low. So anyone who just passed PLAB 1, 2, and you did that, I know from you told me about that. So how many months, and what is the smart way for them to do PLAB, to do AMC after PLAB? This is most important question. I want to answer them.
Very good. Before I jump onto that question, Zishan, I'll just highlight and finish my topic there in terms of secondary sources we've
Oh
talked
yeah,
about.
yeah, sure.
And the last bulk is, practice tests. So there are lots of practice tests which are available. I don't want to advertise for any particular platform because it becomes a huge issue. But I would like everybody to search freely available as well as paid version of practice exam papers, so they can really practice the exam questions in real time. No exam website is better than the other. Let me be very clear. It's entirely up to your own discretion which exam website you want to do. Now, coming back to your question that after doing PLAB 1 and PLAB 2, how long should you dedicate in terms of time for preparation of AMC 1? When I was doing AMC 1, trust me, Zishan, I only spent 3 weeks with my full-time work. And I did not find AMC 1 to be hard at all. Now, I was very fresh. I'd only done PLAB about 2.5 years ago. I was working in the UK system. I had done emergency medicine, orthopedics, general surgery, medicine jobs, urology jobs in the UK already. Plus, I came here on competent authority pathway, but then decided to actually do AMC as well, because at that time there was no APRA, there was just local New South Wales board, so there was no unification that if I want to get a job in Queensland, I may have to follow their restrictions or their rules and regulations. So AMC at that time was a very national test, and I thought I need to stay in Australia, I should just get AMC out of the way. So I did the AMC, but it took me only 3 weeks. I based my study heavily on the resources which I'd already studied, which is Oxford Handbook of Clinical Medicine. There were lots of questions available, which somebody shared with me, that these are the questions for the last 10 years. So it's a huge bank. And I passively studied those questions. So I managed to pass questions, like exams, without any problem. That was back in 2006, I think it was. I was already working in Australian health system as an emergency medicine registrar. So I had this added advantage of working in the system. So if anybody who's done PLAB 1 and PLAB 2, I would still recommend that please give exam its due course. You may not have worked in the UK, which is very important. You may not have obviously have any idea how things operate here in Australia. So when you don't know the system, when you don't know how things are done, because lots of these questions are very practical questions, they're not theoretical, histopathology, physiology cycle, or KERP cycle. They're very practical questions. And if you're not really working in the system, it's mostly based on your learning of the protocols. So if you're not working in the system, if you have not worked in the UK system, then definitely spend at least 2 or 3 months, 3 months at least, I would say, to get yourself at par at that level. And I'm 100% sure the people who have passed PLAB 1 and PLAB 2 with 3 months of study, they should easily be able to pass AMC 1.
Perfect. So when they pass AMC 1, so they don't have to take AMC 2, who already done with the PLAB 2 or PLAB 1.
That's right, Zishan. So they're going to what I call it, don't look it up on Google, modified competent authority pathway.
Okay.
So the way it's worded on AMC website is very confusing, but basically what it means is that if you have done PLAB, the clinical component of training can be done in any other equivalent health system.
Okay.
Now, people initially assume that I've done PLAB 1 and PLAB 2, so the training can be done in Australia right from de novo. Australians said, no. It doesn't mean that. You still have to do AMC Part 1, then work in Australia for 12 months. And then after that 12 months, we will exempt your AMC Part 2, provided your reports are satisfactory. That's the other thing. Because you're still coming under supervised training scheme here, and you need to have as an international medical graduate, you need to have term wise reports, and if your reports are satisfactory, they will exempt your AMC part, which majority of the people will get their exemption based on that. And once the AMC part 2 is exempted, that's good. After about 12 months of work here in the UK, you don't have to, in Australia, you don't have to sit the AMC 2. You'll get, after the end of 12 months, you can apply for general registration, which is free and unlimited registration, which allows you to enter into training, which allows you to do locum, which allows you to pretty much freely do anything what you want.
Yes, that's a good option for the doctors. And if anyone have done 1 year of already NHS job, would you still recommend AMC 1 because they haven't done the foundation training in the UK? Usually, the doctors who have done the foundation training in the UK, they get easily job in Australia. But I believe I have searched a lot, and a lot of doctors say it's better to have AMC 1. Do you agree with about that if you still have NHS experience?
If my personal opinion, if you have worked in the UK for 12 months after completing your PLAB, you do not have to take AMC Part 1.
Right. Okay.
Now, that comes from a person who did AMC Part 1 despite the fact that he had already done for 3 years in the UK. But at that time, the rules were different and were not very clear. So my reasoning of doing AMC 1 was to secure myself.
Okay.
When you're already coming through competent authority pathway, don't waste time resitting an exam, which is going to not add any further value towards your registration. I think the focus and emphasis should be to learn the local pathways by working in the system.
Okay.
So if you worked in the UK, you have got a PLAB, you will fairly reasonably quick get a job in Australia. That's not a problem. I haven't seen many people who have worked in the UK struggling to find a job. Okay, 3 months, 4 months max, they'll get a job where they desire. And then focus, if you need to take the exam, focus on getting the general registration and do the exams in the specialty where you want to train in. If you want to become a GP or emergency medicine specialist or anesthetist or gynecologist or pediatrician or surgeon, focus on that. Don't duplicate things. I'm not the one who would advocate for unnecessary exam ever. And that's what we see in, whenever I do my private consultation, I always say that, look, you need to be very economical with exam. A person only comes with set amount of energy, and don't waste your energy. It's very precious.
Okay. I have one more question. So realistic timeline. So someone who done AMC 1 and someone who had done PLAB 2 at the moment, I know currently a lot of doctors 2 and 3 years, they're not getting job, they're applying on the track job. So what is the realistic timeline after AMC 1 with a good CV? Uh, how long it would take to secure a job in Australia after AMC 1?
If you've got a good CV, it will still take, and you're coming directly from Pakistan.
Yeah.
It will still take you anything in between 6 to 12 months.
Okay.
Okay. That is good CV, meaning you've got house job. After the house job, you've got at least 1 more year of rotational jobs, 3 months in medicine, 3 months in surgery, pediatrics, obs and gynae. Ideally, you should have another year on top of that with a bit more emergency experience, a bit more, surgery experience, something more broad. Even a GP experience, that would be fine, but not exclusive GP experience for 2 years. No, I'm not talking about that.
Yeah.
I'm saying mixed amalgamation of specialty exposure, because the reason I say that, I'll make it very simple. What good experience means. I'll completely take the guesswork out of it. When you apply for a job in Australia, after AMC1, you're applying for a job as RMO or resident medical officer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you look at any job advertisement of RMO, which are advertised as rotational, they are combination of 4 rotations. They will have 6 months of medicine, 6 to 9 months of medicine, and 3 months of surgery, or 6 to 9 months of 6 months of medicine, 3 months of critical care like emergency, ICU, or anesthesia, and then 3 months of surgery. So you need to target those 5 or 6 specialties. So if you've got, as I say, as a rule of thumb, emergency medicine, pediatrics, obs and gynae, surgery, either ICU or anesthesia, either one of them, you're looking good. Because this is exactly the rotation you will be interviewing for when you're applying for the rotational RMO job. So that takes the guesswork out of it. What is a good experience? If you got exposure in these 5 specialties, that's a good experience. After your house job, that is something.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to add on something, Dr. Zwan. Basically, recently I've been working in A&E in the same department, Royal Oldham. So I've seen after F2, every F2 is going to Australia. And I listen a lot of pleasant words, a lot of brain drain, British people go, and few doctors, F2 doctors mention, even they got job without interview because of CV. So this is something we as a Pakistani struggle. We don't have any ALS center, or even the doctors who come from Pakistan for the PLAB, I do tell them to do at least a PLS, ALS, so that you apply for the job, you get straight forward. So there is a lot of weather preferences as well. The people from the UK, they move for 1 year and 2 year, and sometimes they don't come back. So this is something which is quite intriguing for all the doctors who just finished their house job. And I recommend most of my students who just recently done PLAB 2, rather than just stuck waiting for the job for 2 years, 3 years. I just tell them, just take AMC if you're not getting any experience, and do ALS, APLS, ATLS, and whatever you could do. So that will get you job eventually. And this is the right way, because the New Zealand and Australia at the moment is not saturated, which is which if I'm not wrong, could you add more thing about that, what I said about F2s and someone who's coming from Pakistan? What's the difference?
Look, for the people who are coming from the UK after doing F2, for them getting a job, it's not a big deal. As I said, they would be. It would be hard to find a doctor who's looking for a job beyond 6 months after completion of F2. And the reason they're waiting for that long, because they want a preferred hospital, mostly in Sydney or Melbourne or Brisbane. These are the 3 most preferred cities when it comes to people coming from the UK, because of the eastern state, and the weather's quite nice, and they are large cosmopolitan cities. For the people who are coming from Pakistan, obviously the first job is going to be the most challenging bottleneck they will face. And pretty much the same challenges what they faced in the UK while applying for jobs after finishing PLAB 1 and PLAB 2, they will face similar. I always say that, look, competition does not come from the local graduate. Competition comes from similar people like you, who are also trying to do the same thing for set number of jobs. That's what we've seen in the UK, that the number of candidates applying for training positions or ad hoc positions far exceeds the supply in terms of those training positions and doctor numbers. Here in Australia, the market is not huge. And here too, there is uh, certainly there is an increasing interest, but it's not reached that threshold where the times are spilling over 24 months. Now, let's talk about people who struggle. Who are the people who will really struggle? So people who will really struggle are the people who are coming directly from Pakistan or India, from developing country, or what we call non-comparable system. And the reason that they struggle, that they would have no proper experience, clinical experience. So that means that they would have, as we've talked about, the combination of specialties, they will not have that combination of specialty experience, number one. Number two, they will not have that courses to legitimize that safety standard, which is required by the hospital, at least an ALS course or APLS course. That is also a certain unset requirement. But above all, I think, which I see constantly, just give me a second. Yeah. So above all, which we see constantly, is having the gaps. This seems to be the constant uh, uh, issue. And I tell you one reason. I'll simplify why gaps are critical, and why everybody looks at gaps as a major issue. The gaps are critical is because when there are four jobs and there are 40 people applying for that jobs, and after those 40 people, 39 people have got no career gaps. Okay. And there's one person who's got career gaps. What do you think will happen? Obviously, those people who've got no career gaps would be preferred. They will have further, shortlisting or long listing process, and that's how it's going to be. Now, then people ask me, what is a clinical gap? I say, look, any gap is a gap. Anything beyond 1 month is a clinical gap. You should avoid gaps like a plague, especially if you're like an international medical graduate coming from Pakistan. Gaps are not good. You're not from the UK or US that you can justify a gap year as a discovery to self and connection with your inner soul. No, no, no. It does not work like that. You're coming from a non-comparable system where the health standards are already poor. There's a very minimum supervision. There's absolutely no training, and having a gap in that system, it's just not acceptable. So any gap before you get a job, once you get a job, you can go and do whatever you want with your life. But before that, please don't experiment. Now I can understand sometimes people do end up having a gap for personal reasons. And what do they do to recuperate from that? How do they come back from that gap? Well, you need to add in the same amount of clinical experience as a gap. So if you've got, as a rule of thumb, 3 months of gap, try do 3 months of clinical experience. 6 months of gap, try do 6 months of clinical experience. 12 months of gap, try do. Now that's not the standard requirement from APRA. I'm not talking about APRA. I'm talking about what would hospitals look for. You need to wash away your gaps by same amount of effort. So look, from the point of view of gaps, it's an absolute no. These are the people who will struggle. From the point of view of not having an experience, clinical experience, these are the people who will struggle. And the point of view of people not being taking the recruitment process. And I would like to bring this matter to your viewers with special emphasis. We don't get any training towards the medical interviews. We don't get any training about how to write our CVs. And God bless AI. With the AI, people are now even leaving that process of cognitive problem solving to AI now. And that is actually quite detrimental, because when you apply for jobs, the people who are long listing, they've got software to long list people, shortlist people, and they can tell which of the CVs which are coming from AI. You need to, I'm not against AI, and I've talked about various times that, look, please do utilize ChatGPT. But in terms of utilization of these enhanced tools, use them to correct the spelling mistakes, use them to improve your grammatical errors. But on top of that, try read the job description and try incorporate those words in that job that you're applying for in your CV. It takes time, but honestly, it creates quality in your CV. And when you've got a quality and standard CV, sometimes, some of the jobs here are linked with some questions, which are selection criteria questions that, tell us something about, or an example of teamwork. Okay, how would you clinically prioritize 5 patients who are critically unwell? So then you can come up with a very generic answer if you put these kind of questions in ChatGPT. But if you come up with your own example in some rural hospital in Pakistan, it doesn't really matter that where your experience is coming from, as long as it's original.
Yes, exactly.
So it is very important to create that originality, which I feel sorry for people who are not able to do that because of their lack in communication or because of their lack of understanding of that process. So these are the factors, Ms. Ishan, which lead to people waiting in excess of 12 months, the gaps, unable to get their CV right, selection criteria question right, they cannot interview properly. And, then they start blaming the system, and before you know it, everything's gone southward.
Yes, Dr. Rizwan, I have one last question related to the AMC part one. There's a lot of low hopes from the IMGs, especially from Nigeria, Pakistan, India, after the recent prioritization bill, which will be applicable from 2026. That means there would be like 99% chances that the IMGs will not get training specifically related to EM radiology, where there's less number of posts. So I
Mhm.
just wanted some motivational words because a lot of doctors who done PLAB, they're struggling to get job and they don't have any energy to start another pathway like AMC or so a lot of failures every clinician face in life. I've watched your video in which you talked about your failures. Everyone go through the failure. Anything specifically at this point of time would you suggest doctors who are hopeless in terms of not getting training, or there are any pathways in Australia to get the training or non-training pathway to become consultant? Few things.
Yeah, very important question. And I feel, Zishan, this is a question of a century. Back in our times, things were tough, but I have got a complete sympathy for the younger generation that things are actually more tough. If I was to come as a fresher into the new market, trust me, the amount of emphasis and efforts I have to put in now are far and beyond. Like, who would have heard something like UK prioritization bill? Like, the odds are completely stacked up against you. Who would have heard about these visa rejection issues coming from the UK, and the rightward party is now saying there are a lot more migrants in the UK, and so the odds are stacked against the against the young doctors. And obviously I can understand the hopelessness coming from these issues, because it's not just a pathway, it's the entire future. They want to train, they want to improve the quality of the life, their own lives and their family lives. At this stage, I would say there are some things that they need to really look into, and these are the advice which my seniors gave to me when the 9/11 happened. They used to say, secure your own country first. Okay, at least nobody's going to take your own country from you. So if you're trying to get a job in Australia, or even if you're trying to sort of suss out the situation, how it'll boil over in the UK and settle down, say in 12, 18 months' time, why don't you do FCPS Part 1? Or why don't you sit NEET PG exam? Or why don't you do the equivalent of that exam in Nigeria or Bangladesh? Try do that. At least you've secured yourself in terms of Part 1. As far as my understanding is, there's no compulsion of having a job offer to sit the Part 1 of any exam, FCPS Part 1, you know, NEET PG. There's no requirement for you to enter into the training or have entered into the training. So do the Part 1. That's one thing.
Exactly. So I remember one sentence from your video that you mentioned doctors, if you're not getting jobs, then take some time off, think about your CV, what to do, what not to do. And I just want to share the similar story so about myself. When I got my job here in UK, I waited like 2 years because of COVID. So that was a time. So I got my PLAB one done, then I was not even getting PLAB to see it. So I got a scholarship in Master's Public Health and Research Assistant. So that time period was I was not doing clinical practice for 1.5 year. So that made me rethink what I would do. So at that time, I decided to do the ALS and all those stuff, which improved my CV ultimately. So this is what I think everybody feel that they are late, but it's not a rat race. So you are a physician, you are a clinician, you just need to improve your skills. Like you mentioned that I was the first doctor to work in COVID ward and I enjoyed.
Mhm.
This is what our doctor journey should be, rather than we just think we are not getting training, we're not getting job. Wherever we are working, we should think there was a time when we was thinking we just become doctor. When we become doctor, we become hopeless, we're not getting this, we're not getting this. But when we get into training, we don't enjoy because of burnout and all those things, because
Mm.
just we just hopeless and we do not improve ourselves as a physician. This is what I learned from your videos and from my own experience as well.
You're right. There was a Afghani doctor, and I really admire him. He was working here as a pathologist. It was a COVID time. He was working as a blood collector in one of the Sydney pathology. He lived very close to where I live. And he used to come to my workshops, which I was doing as COVID was easing off. And he used to say, "Oh, look, Dr. Zwan, I've tried everything. I've done AMC1. I've done the courses. I'm working as a pathologist. I'm not really getting a job." I said, I won't take his name, but I said, just go to Afghanistan if you can and just do 3 months of experience. Trust me, this COVID is going to create lots of opportunities. Trust me on that. You've got a large career gap, and the hospitals, even with the COVID, they're not just going to give a blind check to everyone. They will still make sure that they've done their due diligence and checks. He went to Afghanistan. He said, "Which specialty should I work in?" I said, "If you can get into emergency medicine, that's perfect." So he worked in emergency medicine department. Start sending me his photos that he's working in emergency medicine. He saw this case, that case. I said, "Write down everything about the case as your reflection." And trust me, he got like shortlisted 4 or 5 times. I even prepared him for an interview. He got the job. And now he's in system. I think he's gone into the GP training now, and a tremendous outcome. There was another doctor from China who was working here in Australia as a sonographer, and obviously had a very long career gap. She also did everything which she could in order to re-enter into Australian health system around the COVID time. And then again, the gaps are too big. She went to China. She did the recency of 3 months, came back in here with all the things that she had done in terms of courses and AMC, MCQ, and workshops. It just act like a catalyst to that clinical experience. So again, coming to the same point, that if you do FCPS part 1 or MD part 1 or NEET PG part 1, don't think that you've done it and it'll go in waste. Any study does not go in waste. It'll add, and we've seen countless time, it actually adds one exam which looks good on your paper. So people still ask me that, is it worth doing membership exams, or is it worth doing? Now I just say that, look, yes, do exams which are economical. Don't try to blindly any exam which are not really helping you towards the job. So I think from that point of view, FCPS, from that point of view, NEET PG, from that point of view, MD exam, that is very good. But membership exam, I think, are a little bit tricky at this stage right now, because even if you get registration in the UK by virtue of membership exam, I don't know the opportunity exists there.
Exactly.
And they
So
would look good on CV, but they might not create that opportunity that you have done that.
yeah, I agree. I agree with you. So the next question is about specialty pathway. You mentioned about some exams like FCPS. Then I have a question about MRCGP International, because you have few examples how the people come to UK as a GP, come to the Australia as a GP, and the difference between UK and Australia is, I would say, anyone who is interested in GP practice in UK, you will not get any job related to GP if you are not GP in GP training. But in Australia, there is a lot of jobs where you can do as a GP under supervision. So can you put some light on that, and what are the other ways to work as a specialty pathway in the UK if someone who is already working in Pakistan or doing FCPS, MD or MCPS? And then I would also give you one example later, because I have little conflict about one exam, and I'll give you example in the UK and other countries how that exam is important. That's a membership exam. So I have a little conflict. I'll tell you afterwards.
Sure, sure. So look, from the point of view of specialist pathway and GP pathways, uh, they are complex pathways. They're not easy pathways. Not everybody qualifies for specialist pathway or GP pathway. Say, for instance, MRCGP International, you need to have a 5 year of full-time equivalent GP experience. On top of that, you need to have passed all the components of MRCGP International exam. Because you're coming as a GP specialist, you do get a job as a GP. My own sister has come in through the same pathway. We have facilitated about 120 doctors over the course of the last 1 year coming to Australia through MRCGP pathway, and some of them are very good. Most of them are actually coming from Middle East. They were working in that system in UAE or Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and they don't see any end to their their professionalism. They say that it's not growing. Salaries are reducing in Middle East. There's no security in job. It's contract, ad hoc. Uh, they feel that there's no security for their children. So they're the one who benefited the most, who have got the good GP experience on top of MRC GP International. And they're the first fruit bearers of this pathway. But having said that, why I do say that this is complex, because they have to come to the regional and rural areas of Australia. In fact, rural areas of Australia now, because initially they were coming in the area which are the first tier regional areas, then they were moving to more second tier and now third tier rural areas. Initially, they were getting, like I remember our first, second, third wave of GPs which we facilitated, they were getting sign up bonuses of like $10,000. They were getting relocation allowances. They were getting sign up bonuses. They were getting tickets paid off. They were having their visa fees waived off by the GP practices. Some of them, Zishan, even came on permanent residency visa directly from Middle East, permanent residency visa. Okay. So that was a good time about a year ago, you can say that. But thousands of GPs have come, and in fact, it became almost like an industry. The GPs were like literally facilitated. But the way I say that this is complex is because they are needing to do further training here for 12 months. And after that further training, they're expected to pass the full FRAC GP exam. So
Okay.
they're not exempted from any exam. After the completion of MRCGP, they are now expected to do FRACGP exam. So their hardships are not finished. In fact, they probably might be starting, and some of them are actually quite, you know, they're not young, and they're they're not as sharp as they were. But I'm now connected with many of them. We've got a WhatsApp group of about 60, 70 GPs, and I can see some of them have completed all the requirement, passed their FRC GP exam, are become full-fledged FRC GP here in Australia. So that's good from the MRC GP point of view. The other pathway for the GP point of view is through the same standard pathway. So if somebody's come in through standard pathway, have completed AMC 1, AMC 2, or WBA program, which we didn't talk about at that point, which is a workplace-based assessment. You don't have to do AMC2 here. And if you especially done PLAB, you don't have to do AMC2 at all. But once you get general registration, you can apply for GP training. There's an exam, good passing rate, entrance, good. And if you're willing to relocate into the regional and rural Australia, there's plenty of opportunity. GP College is one of the largest college. I'm pretty sure that UK is the same. GP College is the largest college in terms of number of trainees, more than
Yeah, exactly.
15,000 trainees per year. Yes. So it's a huge college. There are lots of trainees. There are lots of trainers. So that is the other route for the GPs to come in, is through joining the AGPT program. So it's called Australian General Practice Training Program. The other program is called Fellowship Support Program, which is self-funded, in which you pay the college, and the college will create some set identified positions for you. So there are a number of different options. There's some rural incentives there, and yes. So I think if I was to talk about future in Australia, as per Department of Aging and Medicare, up until 2032, there's still going to be a shortage of GPs. So if somebody is more oriented towards family medicine, they're more oriented towards, being a GP with specialist interest in any of the specialties that they've worked in predominantly, there are very good opportunities to get trained. And training is very short. GP training in Australia is only 2 years after doing 2 years of hospital work.
Okay.
So it's not a very long pathway. And the
Oh,
salaries are quite good. Yeah, salaries are quite good. It gets you a permanent resident very quickly. So overall, it's a very good entry, training, and exit to become a permanent resident and establish your own practice, be a business owner, establish two practices. I have actually got a very close friend, couple of mine who've come from the UK. They were already MRC GP CCT in the UK, both husband and wife. After coming here on this specialist pathway, they've now got three practices in a span of 3 years. And they live very close to where I live, and humble, very good couple, and excellent professional development for both of them.
Okay, perfect. So, Dr. Zawan, there is something which I have a little conflict one of your video. I'm sorry to say
Yeah.
that.
No, no, please.
So basically, a video, I don't know, you talked about a lot of colleges and you said that this exam is a scam, this is a scam, this is a scam,
Yeah.
this. So I live in UK and Ireland is nearby to me as well. So I go through the track jobs and all those. So I felt
Yeah.
a little bit more strict from your side because, in short, I felt that the doctors who are not in training anyway, so not everybody get the training. So they have something to put on the CV on top of that. These
Yeah.
exams do build a little bit of knowledge and structured because these exams follow the structured training in the UK and Ireland do accept. For example, you mentioned about MRCS. You also done MRCS, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the thing. So when I go through the track job, so they sometimes put a desirable criteria MRChem done or MRCS done, or so that is a shortlisting thing. So along with that, I've seen a lot of doctors who coming from Pakistan, India, if they have done MRChem, so they straight away get for example, their 2 years MD training they do in the India, they come as a registrar and their pathway is very straightforward and they do Caesar. So that's how these exam build the structure. So I myself done like two parts of MRChem. So I find out after taking that exam, it's a continuous professional development and you
Yeah.
understand more about the system, how the emergency medicine would work. And the best thing which I've noticed, if you have done MRChem, the Republic of Ireland will give you ED Reg and they take you straight into the training and they train you as a
Mhm.
seizure pathway. So this is what I've
Mhm.
noticed. That's why I was maybe my research is slightly different from yours because you're living in Australia. So I believe if we tell everyone not to do any exams, so they would get a little disheartened about things because they are sick
Mm.
and they would not be shortlisted because some exams do have essential criteria and which is sometimes they have only membership exam or and I 100% agree with you that these exams is a money making machine as well and I agree with that as well but a little more just a bit I think it was slightly hard on that and I don't know the colleges have seen that video about that this doctor is saying they are making
Yeah.
money and exactly that's something which is quite good but I do agree that these exams really help as well few exams.
Yeah. No, I look, in terms of my research behind that, lots of research comes from the feedback. And whenever I make a video, there's a proper, I do a certain level of reading, and then I get feedbacks, I get interest. I actually get a lot of requests to make videos. So any video that you see on my channel, YouTube channel in particular, is come in through an amalgamation of quite a lot of feedback. In particular to MRChem, I agree with you. It is, I would say that MRChem is perhaps on the same stratosphere as MRCP. And I think MRCP is actually an excellent exam. And that's why I've not included that exam because MRCP is actually recognized or has been long recognized in Pakistan as a specialist level exam. You can do your independent private practice. You can further subtrain, and lots of people have transitioned their MRCP into FCPS and vice versa. We've seen that plenty of examples in our own professors who did MRCP and then they got FRCP after 10 years of continuous work in the government sector, and then they got an honorary FCPS degree. I think what I see about MRChem is, I believe, and I might be wrong in that, now that you've put in so many good validations, I feel that exam needs to do two things. Any exam. First of all, they should improve their knowledge, which most exams do, number one. And number two, it should make you job worthy. Okay. And job worthy in terms of not just for the sake of job, bringing you closer towards your training goal. Okay. So we know that membership exams were primarily a prerequisite to enter into the surgical training, to enter into the physician's training, to enter into later. Uh, MRChem has just come in now. Before into emergency medicine, you could enter to MRCP route and the
That's yes.
MRCS route. Exactly. So MRChem training now you need it. This is a prerequisite. So from that point of view, of gold standard prerequisites, it's got all the essential components. The problem arises with what happened is based on the recent evidences. So now we're seeing FCPS, we're seeing MD, we're seeing DNB in emergency medicine from India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Arab boards, who are coming after the completion of their training program. And some of them are actually quite young, Zishan. Like they have just finished their FCPS training or MD training, and maybe have got one more experience as a consultant or a junior consultant. And they're applying for specialist pathway in Australia through the College of Emergency Medicine. And they're getting full exemptions of all the exam components in Australia. Now, I think it takes a heart for any college to let go of the exam components, because exam are actually the financial
Burden as well.
tool for the colleges. It's the main registration and exams are the main things for the colleges, as the bread and butter of the colleges. So as I did say in my one of the recent videos, that people are now so smart, Zishan, that people who have done FCPS have got a bit of experience. They're applying for jobs without sitting any of the Australian exam, AMC, or you cannot do Australian fellowship exam anyway without being an Australian trainee. But without doing any exam, they are getting directly into training right from Pakistan. Last month, I prepared someone for an interview for the college for the specialist comparability assessment in emergency medicine. He was from Balochistan working in Quetta. He said to me that he has got 4 job offers in Australia in main cities, and he was seeking my counsel, which hospital should I say yes. I've named that, look, you should go to this Sydney hospital. It's a good training system, and I know the director there. He's a good friend of mine. So this is how it's happening. That why should you duplicate exams or do exams which are not really, which you have to redo anyway? So I can understand your point from that. For the people who are in the UK, for them it's a very important milestone to enter into emergency medicine training through portfolio development of Caesar pathway. Irish then going into the Caesar equivalent pathway of the Irish counterpart. However, there's a bit of a disappointment now coming through that even after passing MR Chem, because of the recent rejig of the whole situation of training position, I don't know if it's going to have ripple effect through the Caesar or portfolio development. But people are feeling that, look, we are getting this huge undertaking. Would it really jeopardize it? Nobody knows an answer to this. I don't want to disappoint anyone. Yes, you should do an exam. You must do an exam. But people are now really questioning whether it would lead me into a Caesar pathway developing consultant. Because what yesterday, one of the doctors who I was working with, who I helped with specialist pathways, working with me, he said to me that I came in through DNB in emergency medicine from India without sitting any exams in Australia. I'm just about to complete all the requirements of the specialist comparability pathway in just 2 years. I've been sponsored by the hospital to apply for permanent residency. I'm now applying for consultant position in Australia. Like these, he will be on specialist register. Compared to that people, my same senior colleague who were 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 years senior to me, who had to do MRChem to get the registration, who had to then go into the Caesar transition pathway. And even after the completion of Caesar, when they get their FRChem, I've got a very good friend who is FRChem through Caesar pathway, and I've been asking him to come and apply for a specialist pathway in Australia because his own brother lives in Sydney. And he said, I cannot apply for specialist pathway because Caesar is not accepted one of the routes for a specialist pathway.
Yeah, exactly.
Up until
I understand now. So
that,
basically, you mentioned that now my point is clear now. So someone who is just solely doing MRChem exam, he can do a FCPS training or can do training in MD in India. They should do training and they would be accepted as a trainee pathway further. I agree. So that's something which a lot of doctors who are in Pakistan, they don't go into training, just keep doing exams and they think they would get 100%. I agree with that because FCPS will increase your procedural skill and this exam would not. Now I understand what.
Zishan, this is the most beautiful thing that I've always believed, that there should never be more exams on doctors. If you've done FCPS or MD or MRChem or FRChem in any country, that should be enough. Why do we have to do and redo the exams in same subjects with a very similar structure of every country.
Mhm.
Like they should not be, there should be a curriculum which should be based on, like, I mean, same goes in universities, Ishan. If you go and you've done one degree in university, they've got credit point score system that you get credits for a university degree that you've done from your own home country. That if you've completed, say, MSc in some subject, you'll get credit points of that. So you don't have to repeat those subjects toward another master's if you're doing that master's. Why can't we have a system now? And now it's happening. It's finally happening in Australia, that with they're recognizing the fellowship training, they're recognizing MD training and MD exam. They're saying, why put these doctors into repeating those exam, repeating those components in him? Let's find out what they're missing, get them to do the missing component, and then once they've completed those missing component, treat them exactly the same to our local trainee doctors. That is something which no system is doing. Even in the UK, they're treating the Caesar pathway doctor differently to their own CCT. So when I went to Pakistan and I was doing some emergency focus courses, they were like, some UK FRChem who came to help me out, and they used to say very proudly, "Oh, I'm a CCT FRChem." I said, "What is CCT FRChem?
Yes,
You're
exactly.
FRChem, that's enough."
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
then my friend, one very close friend of mine, told me, "No, no, no, I'm a Caesar FRChem. I am not on a specialist register yet. In order to get on the specialist register, I have to work as a consultant in a
Yeah.
non-substantive position as a locum consultant for 3 years or
Then
some duration. Then I can only get into." I said, okay, so there's a dual. So they've created themselves a two-tiered system specifically for IMGs. Um, or even the local doctors might be at the brunt of that system. But having that two-tier system does not do anybody any favor.
yes,
And that's what my resentment was mainly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Zwan, is like I know it's 11 again. So few fun questions I would like to ask.
Yep.
You talked about this, the simple summary. You talked about the AMC pathway is a better pathway, and I agree because after AMC you'll end up getting job with a good CV, even you're from Pakistan, India, and 6 month to 1 year. That's right, and I agree with you. I've seen a lot of doctors who got. If you got NHS experience, you apply a job with the good CV, you get the job straight away. I've seen a lot of my colleagues from Pakistan who went after 1 year. The second thing we talked about the specialty pathway, and you mentioned that if you've done training FCPS or any training from India or from Bangladesh, the still is happy to accept without any exam. And last thing,
Not for every specialty. For
Mhm.
emergency medicine, for medicine and allied, for radiology, you still have to do exam. For anesthesia, you may still have to do exam. For surgery, you definitely have to do exams. But for emergency medicine and for medicine, for gynecology, you still have to do
Okay.
exams. So not every college is pure. But for medicine and emergency medicine, you, you have to do exam.
Okay.
You don't have to do exam.
Now I want to talk about, thank you, about some fun life. So because overall we are humans, we want to go to beaches, we want to enjoy life. Money, let's talk about money. I want to do comparison about
Yes.
ILR. So first I will tell you how the UK is giving ILR and what they're going to do. Then I'll talk about Ireland as well because it's just nearby to me.
Mhm.
Anyone who got the
Mhm.
job. So someone who is going to get a job UK now, Ireland or Australia. So UK will
Mhm.
give you ILR. 5 years you need to work like you need to work. It's very difficult to work in UK. You already know that. So after five
Mhm.
years, you will get ILR. You cannot do any business or anything. If you are in Ireland, if you get a job in Republic of Ireland, jobs is very less. After 2 years, you get stamp for which is like a ILR. You can do locums and everything. So that's the thing in Ireland. So this is I given information to you. Now I want to know how much Australian junior doctor would be earning, what would be the lifestyle, and what are the fun activities in Australia. In UK, you already know desi food, Manchester, that's it. And in
Mhm.
Australia, what are the fun things? What would be the salary? What would be the respect wise? Because a lot of doctors mention that they go to Australia, they feel more respected. How, from your
Mhm.
experience, you would say, and how long it would take to get ILR to start up your own business or anything, or start as a locum. So when you will be freely able to do work in Australia. So these are few questions, sorry.
Yeah. So if you are less than 45 years of age group,
Okay.
and you have completed all the requirements of standard pathway, which is AMC 1, AMC clinical or WBA,
Mhm.
along with 12 months of hospital experience, you get general or full registration with
Mm.
APRA. You can then independently apply for permanent residency in Australia.
Okay.
Okay. So there is no compulsion. If you're able to achieve all of that within 2 years, I've seen people getting permanent residency as little as 2 years. And some of the competent authority doctors have applied for permanent residency in 12 months' time. Okay. And for someone who's done PLAB, for someone like you who's
Mhm.
done PLAB, who's
Mhm.
got good emergency experience,
Mhm.
who's been working in the UK, you will easily find a job here. You'll come on full competent authority pathway. You'll work here for 12 months in Australia. And at 13th month, Zishan, I'm pretty sure you're less than 45 years of age group.
Yes.
You can directly apply for permanent residency independently.
Oh,
You do
wow.
not need sponsorship from employer or anyone. So you will be a permanent resident in Australia on 13 month. I can challenge you on that one.
Oh, perfect. That's a
Okay.
quite motivational for me, because for me is some,
Yeah.
yeah, good.
And even though, let me reiterate that, even though if you're not a permanent resident in Australia, the doctors who are on 482 visa, they're allowed to work in any hospital in Australia.
Wow.
They can do locums even. I've done locums on limited, like a provisional registration. I mean,
Wow.
locums, not limited registration. You can do locums in limited registration in the same hospital or similar
Mhm. Mhm.
network.
Mhm.
But locums are more for people who are on full registration. Once you've got full registration, then you can do locums as well.
Okay.
But from the point of view of permanent residency, you can have permanent residency as little as 12 months to as maximum as 2 months, 2 years to up to 3 years, depending on how soon you qualify from that general point of view. And someone who's coming from specialist pathway, once they've completed all the requirements of the specialist pathway,
Wow.
which may mean 2 to 3 years for a specialist pathway, slightly longer than standard pathway. Now, in terms of your question of salaries, look, salaries, there's a huge misconception that salaries are like huge in Australia. They're like people are making money and minting money and all that. Uh, it's not true, not at a junior doctor level. If you look at the junior doctor levels, the doctors who are coming on training, their salaries would be only 20%, 25% more than what their standard wages are in the UK. So not at a huge margin. So, for example, to give you a ballpark figure, um, a doctor would be taking away anywhere between 7 to 8,000 Australian dollar per month take home salary. Okay. That is for year one. Year two, you might be taking home $10,000 Australian dollars per month. Year three, 11,000, 12,000. Where actually Australia start winning the salary game is after you become a full-fledged, doctor as a specialist.
Oh, okay.
Now, if you compare the salaries of specialist or NHS consultant and that of the Australian consultant, that's where the difference starts to appear.
It's more like a
So the
US.
starting, yeah, well, it's US is pretty different depending on what kind of work you're putting in hours, and that's where the concept of work-life balance then start to come. So I'll give you an example for a very similar tiered structure of emergency medicine specialist. So a UK emergency medicine specialist would be starting, I don't know, somewhere around £90,000, and they would be maxing out on 135,000 pounds per annum. That would be the maximum amount of salary they would get. They probably, talking to my UK consultant, they don't get any diesel fund like appearing for conferences or doing conferences. Their leaves are pretty much limited or not as good as Australia. The starting salary of a consultant is about $300,000.
Mhm.
Okay. Every year the salary would go up, and for a year 4, year 5 consultant, you'd be earning almost $500,000 an emergency medicine consultant.
Wow. That's
Okay. Now, in this package, there's also something called TESOL fund, which is education fund for the consultant, which is 25,000 Australian dollar per year. you can utilize these 25,000 Australian dollars towards any conference, courses, education anywhere in the world. You provided business class tickets to fly and do those conferences and courses, be it Dubai, Turkey. People actually travel based on these tickets of diesel fund, traveling business class tickets from Australia to anywhere.
Mhm.
So, and plus the other thing, which is the main elephant in the room, Zishan, is the work-life balance. For the 40 hours that you're working as a consultant in Australia, that's not at all hard comparable to 40 hours that you do as a consultant in emergency medicine in the UK. Not at all, sir. I was working yesterday evening as a consultant. We were 4 consultants on the floor on an evening shift. 4 consultant in a regional hospital. Well, Wollongong Hospital. So and we had like, sometimes shifts can be busy, but on an average, if you plot out the busy shifts versus staffing level, it's actually quite good. The staffing level, the patient manageable, its manageability is very good. And the ASM, the Australian College of Emergency Medicine, is advocating for more and more, you know, uh, uh, consultant positions to be created. And the regional department, emergency department, they'll have more positions for doctors and trainees. So as soon as the consultants are taking over the regional role, there will be more trainees there.
Okay.
There will be more departments there. So this ripple effect will keep on going. Now, in terms of quality of life, here, Australia, the quality of life, I always say it's outdoors. Um, it's a big continent. It's like a big island. So beach is in every street. So the life is outdoorsy. People are very, generally health conscious. My brother was visiting me from Canada, and he said to me after landing on first day that, oh, I thought, because Canada, all the desis are there.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
said, oh, I was thinking that I'm very fit in Canada. I've just come to Australia and I
Yeah,
feel like I'm the most unfit person here. So it's a different quality of life here.
yeah,
It's very
exactly.
outdoorsy. Everybody's in sports, running, swimming, cricket. Everybody loves sports of some sort or the other.
That's why they are number one in all sports, say Australians.
Yes,
That's the thing, and the
yes,
houses are big as compared to UK, very small houses, and that's the thing.
yes, yes.
So, Dr. Rizwan, thank you very much for putting light on the different pathways. And can you tell us more of the resources which you're providing, and if anyone who need guidance? I know you're doing emergency focus. Most of your content is for free on the YouTube, and I suggest everybody, because this webinar, recorded webinar, will we will upload this link to the
Yeah,
doctors not able to attend, because there is a lot of gap. Lot of people do not want to know about Australia because they are just restricted in a box, because they think the UK, USMLE are the only ways to go forward, and eventually they end up sometimes not getting match or not getting jobs. So there is another part in the world like Australia, New Zealand, and now Canada as well, where if you get a bit of experience from UK or Australia, there is opportunity. It's like a ladder. I tell everybody, all the candidates who are taking PLAB, I just tell them, don't stop. The same way that you mentioned about that, don't stop working hard. Work on your CV, do your research courses if you can do, or just keep doing any job. Even you can do your own private clinic if you're in Pakistan, which is liberty. You can't do it in anywhere else. So this is what I would suggest people. So what are the resources your brand is providing, and in terms of in terms of counseling, in terms of AMC, and what is unique about your resources?
yeah. So thank you, Zishan. It was a pleasure talking to you. I always like questions, and questions by virtue of examples always shed, because we anecdotally we are all speaking from our own experiences, but from our own individual experiences, I think it creates facts-based analysis rather than creating my impression of things when I've not been through that. Um, our platform, Emergency Focus, or emergencyfocus.net, the website, is one stop solution for everything, right from the point of view of AMC MCQ to AMC clinical to WBA resources to job CVs to job application to specialist pathway to GP pathways to clinical observation to GP MRC GP pathway to courses, CPD courses. We are also getting collaboration from other CPD houses. So if anybody is thinking about having anything to do with Australia, they just have to establish a link with us with an email, info@emergencyfocus.net, and we'll take care of them. From wherever, if you're a doctor, we've got a solution from you. So whether you want one-on-one career guidance, whether you want an AMC MCQ course, a clinical course, or WBA course, or a specialist pathway or GP path, we can provide all those things. It's all online. And one of our, it's strange that our biggest chunk of customers actually are coming from India and Sri Lanka. And Pakistanis are always late to the party for some reason. But now we're getting many Pakistanis, especially in emergency medicine, which I'm very proud to see. I think we do realize things when they're getting very hot. We catch the market at the peak. We don't see the upward trend rising. We are always one. It will mature and I'll join. We don't join the rising trend. We we join the trend when it's on the peak. So right now, Australian
Exactly.
trend is at the peak.
Yeah,
So anyway,
I believe the Pakistanis, most of they go through the easy pathway. They got to know the PLAB is easy, shorter, less money, and they just go to
yes.
that. But now there is nothing left in PLAB pathway because after doing the PLAB in just 6, 7, 8 months, you're not getting job. You need to think further options as well. So
Alternates, yeah.
this is what I tell them, do PLAB and all that. So yeah, exactly. I agree 100% about the things you mentioned. And I love one thing about you is that you tell us and the doctor the unique part of being doctor and what are the unique pathways which nobody tell, because there is a mentality the doctors who are working in UK. I remember once I asked one of my senior, I want to do a research fellowship. He didn't answer me, and someone else from somewhere else did. So this is something which I noticed specifically related to our nationality, so that people don't guide. This is something different from you. Each and every video tells something unique, which I love about you, which people love about you, not even from Pakistan, from the, because they have a lot of questions, but they don't get answer, lived experience, which you
Yeah.
tell. And I appreciate the work you're doing is quite
Thank you very much.
impressive, and I appreciate you giving us some time. And I'll make sure this webinar, which question I asked, I get at least through all the PLAB doctors who are just struggling to get job, and they know more about that. And other pathways are there in Australia. And the lovely thing, what I think about that, in UK, you when you come, you need to work 5 years as a trust grade job, and then you would
Mm.
be able to do something like a locum or your own business if you want to
Mhm.
do else. But Australia has these opportunities. So, Dr. Izwan, if you want to summarize anything, that's fine. Then I think you're
Yeah,
giving.
look, I'll just say for last me a few line. Regardless of which country and which continent you'll settle in, prioritize training. And exams are always good. They, if anything, add knowledge component. And obviously, if they're making you strong in terms of local job market, as you were suggesting, Zishan, then definitely any exam should be taken with complete compulsion that I need to do this exam because I'm convicted. Uh, there's a lot of confusion, but I think staying focused and strong, the confusions will always be there. Right now, it's prioritization. Will in my time it was 9/11. There's always something COVID happening or that or this. This is at 5 yearly, 10-year cycle. There would be some issues, but what I've seen is resilience or commitment always wins. And I've seen now from our platform, I've seen thousands of doctors who have been able to start their careers, get training, get into, become cardiologists, become surgeons who I never thought would be able to do anything, but they have defeated the odds and they've defined their own unique journey. So stay strong, stay committed, prioritize training. Once you have got this as a single goal, that we need to train, we need to get a proper training, then trust me, after initial sacrifice, the life is beautiful after that, no matter what country you are.
Lovely. Love it. The way you speak, the way you explain things. And it should be motivation for everybody. Being a doctor, you should think about the other hustles the doctors can do, and Australia provide that. And I appreciate your presence today. And I I just give advice to all the doctors who watched or will watch this webinar to think about all the pathways which can upgrade your skills, just not exams. I agree with that, and you cleared my point very well. And now I understand about your video, because those exams can increase your knowledge, but the skill, there is nothing alternative to the skills.
Thank you very much, Zishan. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
I hope your days go well. All the best, my friend.
Thank you, Rizwan. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.